Gurudev by Damayanti Sejpal. Chapter 5. Help from Neighbouring Villages. About 80 miles from Chitrakoot lies Paparenda, and the Mukhiya, headman of that village, used to send grains to Janki Kund, but on demise of Bodh Ramdasji, he thought that the Sadhu Seva would discontinue, and therefore he sent nothing. When Gurudev approached him, he said, "You have come too late, at least for this year. We have already sold all our grains. Please come next year." Yet the villagers collected ₹30, a princely sum equivalent to ₹15,000 of today, since gold then was about ₹10 per 10 grams. And out of this, Gurudev purchased grains for a few rupees. In Chitrakoot, the volunteers asked, "How can we continue Sadhu Seva for a full year on such a meagre quantity?" Gurudev replied, "Don't worry, leave the rest to God." As the supplies dwindled from day to day, as though by a miracle, a big Sethya appeared with cartloads of dal, gram, barley, etc. The Sethji met with Gurudev, and thus, having donated such huge provisions, he quietly departed. The Mahatmas took this as an act of divine grace on account of Gurudev's powers, and then onwards their reverence towards him increased many-fold. Next year, amidst scorching noonday heat on Ram Navami day, Gurudev started for Paparenda with bare feet. None dared to suggest the use of shoes or a vehicle. At Paparenda, the Mukhiya and the villagers gave food and grains generously. That year, Pujya Shri could just scrape through Sadhu Seva, as if on account of his supreme faith in God and the siddhis bestowed on him. Next year, he concluded that some permanent solution should be found whereby the Sadhu Seva may continue uninterrupted. The Thakur of Paparenda was suffering from acute and terminal stage of asthma. He told Gurudev, "If you save me from this life-sapping disease, I shall render appropriate service unto you." Gurudev gave him some churna, and the Thakur recovered completely, and thereafter he was grateful to Gurudev forever. On learning of this miracle cure, the village folk flocked to him for his divine touch to cure all their illnesses. They also contributed grain generously for Sadhu Seva. While in Paparenda, Gurudev used to give discourses on the Ramayana, and without a mic, his strong voice could be heard far and wide. According to our scriptures, out of 8 million births in each cycle, we get the supreme human form only once. Among humans, saints are best, and among the saints, Gurudev tops the list. Yet, contrary to accepting services that were due to him as a saint from ordinary humans, he devoted himself to the service of humanity. He practiced what the poet merely sang. "He prayeth best who loveth best, all creatures great and small, for the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all." As Shri Ram became Vanvasi and Lord Krishna undertook menial duties as a cowherd and played the flute to please his devotees, thus instead of a Mahatma, Gurudev became Babaji for the simple souls around there. Despite his frail body, Gurudev would lift a sack full of grains weighing about 100 pounds. When people would tell him to take it easy, he would say with a smile, "You may rest for a while, but do as I say." For that year, the villagers donated 40 sackfuls of grain for Sadhu Seva. Gurudev left Paparenda after suggesting to the villagers to try out wheat plantation in some areas instead of only gram, which was their conventional major crop. One Hanuman Singhji insisted on getting Diksha, initiation as disciple, and Kanthi from Gurudev. At first he was refused, but when he was insistent, Gurudev acceded to his request and admonished him thus: 1. Never steal. 2. Never desecrate another's property. And above all, 3. Chant Ram Nam as much as possible. Since he practiced what he preached, people respected and revered him and followed Gurudev's teachings. Truly, the value of a true saint is far above the value of rubies. Jai Shri Ram. My Gurudev by Damayanti Sejpal. Chapter 6. Love of God. For Sadhu Seva grain collection, on the invitation of Shri Rambahariji Saraiya, Gurudev used to visit his village, which was about 18 miles from Chitrakoot. In that village, there lived a devotee of Pujya Shri named Shyam Sundarji, who was unhappy because all his children were stillborn, and thus he was without a child. Gurudev blessed him with a smile. Don't worry, this time the child will surely live. From his devotees, God expects only 3 things. 1. Clear conscience. 2. Control over the sense organs. 3. Unity with God. And if one follows these principles with love, humility, and devotion, God would assure that whatever such a devotee says would happen as surely as though God Himself had promised it. That is how Gurudev's blessings to his devotee bore fruit, and Shyam Sundarji's next child was a healthy son. In another case, when a similar result was obtained, Gurudev told the joyous parents to perform his Chuddha Karma ritual at Chitrakoot. The mother named the boy as Maharaj Deen, in fond memory of Gurudev. Gradually, the entire Brahmin community of Saraiya became devout followers of Gurudev. Whenever Pujya Shri visited Saraiya, he would go to Shyam Sundarji's house and say, "Come on, I am very hungry. Get me some gram flour." And then he would cook roti out of the same and eat it with apparent relish and contentment. In reality, this was a mere ruse to save his host from embarrassment for not having wheat flour, because at that time wheat was not a common crop, whereas Gurudev normally ate only wheat tikkad. By such tact, Gurudev assured that his host was neither embarrassed nor inconvenienced. This endeared him to all. On listening to his discourses, the village folk all around there started chanting Ram Nam with ecstasy and did regular jap of same, and also discarded their vices and addictions. Around those villages, even today, People have such faith in Gurudev that it is in their firm belief that merely remembering him, whom they called Bade Sarkar, Big Master, even once was enough to accomplish the fulfillment of all their wishes. Truly, it is said, faith is the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. Jai Shri Ram.
Chapter 7 Gurudev's Humility. Even today, many people would bear witness to the fact that at their request, merely by locating hitherto undetected and untapped underground springs, Gurudev made the formerly dried up wells perennially flowing with water. His benevolence towards his devotees made it possible for them to introduce new crops like wheat and enhanced food production that made people prosperous with overflowing granaries. Naturally, they could donate more and more towards sadhu seva. Janki Kund lacked pakka storage space, so the village folk helped in constructing such godowns with bricks and lime or cement. Bearing testimony to their simple-minded devotion and efforts, such structures can be seen even today. Impressed by Gurudev's simple lifestyle and divine works, the villagers started worshipping him as a devta. When people would come for darshan and would offer him high denomination notes as donation, Gurudev used to say, "I don't want so much money from you. Your hard-earned 1 rupee is equivalent to thousands donated by the rich and affluent classes." Truly, the saintly heart could not be won by monetary consideration, but only by true devotion and reverence for the right way of life. He did not covet titles such as Malik or Mahant. He entrusted the post of Mahant to Ranchoddasji. In turn, the people called him with adoration as Bade Sarkar, the great master. Truly, it has been said, the one who abhors and shuns power rules over the head and heart of people like an uncrowned king. Jai Shri Ram. Chapter 8 Those who live by the sword shall die by their own sword. Before Gurudev came to Janki Kund, there used to be a cult of Rasik Samaj over there. This cult propagated Shringar Ras within Ram Bhakti, which was akin to Ras Leela of Shri Krishna. Gurudev opposed them, saying Shri Ram was Maryada Purushottam. He had taken the vow of monogamy, and for him all women other than Shri Janki Ji were like Mata Kaushalya. As could be expected, the Rasik Samaj reacted violently. They murdered one of Gurudev's supporters, Mahatma Bodhram Dasji, and another, Ganesh Dasji, was severely beaten up. Gurudev was unmoved by their violent reaction and kept on preaching that devotees of Shri Ram must lead a simple and unassuming life, and in Ram Bhakti there was no place for libertine behavior. Finally, the Rasik Samaj lost its hold on Janki Kund and left the place in total disarray. Now, the simple Mahatmas were left in peace and tranquility to pursue their sadhana. On being driven out thus, the Rasik Samaj was planning their revenge. They succeeded in creating defection at Janki Kund by luring away one Ram Avtarji and the Jagirdar of Navagam to their side. However, Gurudev listened to their tirades with total disinterest and equanimity. Once losing his sanity, Ram Avatarji shouted at Gurudev, "I will kill you and throw you away." Gurudev replied calmly, "Brother, all of us are mortal, those who are born and destined to die, and I am no exception. But if you try to kill me, you yourself will die." These prophetic words shortly came to be true. While Gurudev decided to move away to avoid friction and went to stay at Hastam, at the Kund, Ramavatarji died. Similar to the Puranic tale of Prahlad and his father Hiranyakashyap, an aggressor who tries to kill a devotee of God gets killed himself. This was a concrete demonstration and repetition of that tale. In the kingdom of God, in the long run, only truth prevails, though in the short span it may appear as though falsity may succeed. Indeed, as love begets love, violence begets violence. Jai Shri Ram.
Chapter 9. Goodness in Return of Evil. The Jagirdar who had joined Ram Avatarji in abusing Gurudev was punished by God by terminating his family lineage. All babies in his family were stillborn. Realizing his mistake, he went to Gurudev with tearful eyes and asked for his forgiveness. Like the divine saint that he was, Gurudev forgave him and agreed to return to Janki Kund. Then the Jagirdar received the auspicious news about the birth of a healthy son, and he at once realized that this good fortune was a result of Gurudev's forgiveness and his blessings. Gurudev took special care to see that neither the rich nor the poor should feel neglected among his disciples. He knew that a certain rich man gave donation to get name and fame and even material benefits, but the humble villagers did so out of sheer love and devotion. So as to make the common people feel that they were in no way inferior to the rich, he made all around him feel that he belonged to all without any distinction whatsoever. The Jagirdar described above lacked nothing except children to continue his family line. As Gurudev blessed him with a son, he was equally benevolent towards poor who lacked children. The rich who were thus blessed with offsprings came forward with humility and devotion to donate generously for works of social welfare, being conducted under Gurudev's guidance. Some of them donated anonymously, and a separate list of such donors was maintained. Gurudev's way of achieving rapport with common people like Shyam Sundarji and others made him revered and earned him more and more devotion from the people. In a certain respect, this was similar to what Sri Ram did when he befriended Kevat and went to the ashram of Shabri and gave them his blessings. Simultaneously, he also gave his blessings to the royal class represented by King Manu and Queen Shatrupa. Perhaps one can gauge the depth of an ocean, but one can never measure the extent of Sri Gurudev's benevolence and love of mankind, alike for the humble and the rich, the meek and downtrodden, as well as those in high positions. Jai Shri Ram. Chapter 10. Sainthood in Action. Once Shri Param Sharanji brought a saintly and brilliant child to the Kund. He was rather talkative. This child was drawn towards Gurudev at first sight, and wished to leave his former mentor, and out of irresistible attraction he wished to stay under Gurudev. Pujya Shri, noting his extra talkativeness, gently suggested to the child, "If you observe Morn for a few days, you will be able to control your faculty of speech and put it to much better use." Obeying these orders, the child observed Morn for a very long period of time without a break. Then people started calling him Morni Baba. Gurudev was also favourably inclined towards him and considered him worthy to undertake sadhana. He formally initiated him and also taught him some yogic kriyas. On his part, the child did achieve some degree of proficiency, but failed to attain the high standards of sadhana set up by Pujya Shri. Later, another saint, Sitaramji, joined Gurudev and he too was taught yoga sadhana. But the Chitrakoot climate did not suit his disposition. He had severe rashes on his body, and Gurudev ordered him to carry on with his sadhana in colder climates like the Himalayas. After the initiation of Moniji, Gurudev felt himself relatively free from administrative work, which was taken over by Ranchoddasji and Moniji. Now having been freed from the mundane routine with a view to widen the sphere of his social welfare activities, he decided to go on a journey to other provinces. Like the holy and divine river Ganga, when having left the Sri Charan of Lord Vishnu, descended on the head of Lord Shiva, and then on the Himalayas, and later, to spread her bounty among us, flowed through the dusty plains of India to invigorate not only our crops but also our spirits. Similarly, Gurudev, having achieved self-realization, left the solitude of Ansuyaji, Juri, Chitrakoot, and like a mobile place of pilgrimage, started on his onward journey for the welfare of mankind. Naturally, his mission was twofold. 1. Maximizing works of public good, and 2. Propagating the worship of Lord Ram. With meagre possessions of one kamandalu, one shawl and 2 langotis, and with a view to avoid the need to ask for direction, he started along the rail tracks. He walked so briskly that none could keep pace with him. Obviously, the saint was in a hurry to accomplish his mission. At night he would rest on the ground in the open, with his elbow as a pillow, and drape the shawl around his body to protect it from the vagaries of weather. Wandering thus on foot for several days, he reached Kutch in Saurashtra. As we shall see, the gushing waters that we see were initially tiny droplets, then turned to a trickle, then to streams and rivulets, which converged to become the mighty Amazon, Brahmaputra, or the holy Ganga. Jai Shri Ram. Chapter 11. The Good Fortune of Saurashtra. Gurudev first reached the city of Anjar, Kutch, and went to Kumariya Hanuman Mandir. The Mahant Shri Ranchoddasji accorded him a hearty welcome. Gurudev stayed there for a while and with the help of Mahantji performed an Anushthan of Shri Hanumanji and then went over to Anjar. In the city there was a devout person, Shri Rajnarayanji, who rendered services to saints, and he welcomed Gurudev to his house. Though he stayed with the Shethji, he would camp in the garden, and despite the fact that the whole family was willing to be at his service, Pujya Shri was interested only in giving discourses and nothing more. He never interfered with their personal affairs, nor would he accept anything from them. After completing his sadhan bhajan, Gurudev would have the falhar of fruits, groundnuts or boiled potatoes in very small portions. He would do all his work such as washing clothes and cleaning utensils himself. His serene simplicity and self-reliance so impressed Ram Narayan Ji that on the last day of Gurudev's stay, he assembled his entire family and insisted on performing his arti and addressed him as a devta. From Anjar, Gurudev went on to his further journey to surrounding towns and villages such as Morbi and other places, propagated Ram Kirtan and devotion unto Lord Ram. He used to tell them, in this Kali-yug, man has fallen from spiritual planes due to greed and lethargy, and for his uplift and well-being the only and sure-fire remedy is Ram Nam. After his visit to several villages and preaching along the way, Gurudev reached Kotada. Over there, some devotees who had come for darshan invited him to visit Rajkot and he agreed. When finally he reached Rajkot, he stayed on the banks of river Aji, having fulfilled his promise to give darshan to devotees like Jetha Bhai, Shamji Bhai and Kalyanji Bhai. He proceeded onwards on his journey to propagate Ram Bhakti and works of Lok Kalyan, social welfare. For this naughty world owes its existence to justice of the strong, the charity of the rich, the wisdom of the learned, and above all to the prayers of the poor. Jai Shri Ram.